The chamber shimmered with gold-veined quartz walls, the air rich with perfume that smelled like crushed starlight and spoiled meat. High Vizier Churuk stood on the dais, swathed in crimson silk, his 4 eyes scanning the room with imperial detachment. The hammer in his hand, crafted from a neutron-forged alloy, struck the crystalline podium with a chime that silenced the crowd. In Lot 71, Churuk announced, "We present 2 Terran juveniles. Female. Untamed. Prime condition. Opening bid begins at 4,000 Scythian credits." The girls were led forward in transparent stasis cubes, their expressions vacant from sedation. Their names weren't spoken. Their origin was reduced to a single label above them, Earth subtype, Homo sapiens. One alien, something scaled, oily, and surrounded by servants, raised a claw. Another, cloaked in telepathic silks, doubled the offer. The bidding war began, cheered by glittering elites. Churuk's smile curled. Somewhere, hundreds of light-years away, the live broadcast rippled through the galactic relay system and reached Earth. Commander Elena Drake was halfway through a strategy simulation at Olympus Moon Base when the feed hijacked her wall screen. The moment the audio kicked in, her jaw locked. She stood slowly, her spine a wire of ice. Around her, officers fell silent as the camera panned to the 2 children, pale, small, and displayed like pets. "Is this real?" whispered Lieutenant Corrin beside her. The feed bore the unmistakable watermark of the Concorde's trade ministry. It was real. And it was deliberate. The auctioneer's voice rang out across the room, too smooth, too proud. "Sold. To the matriarch of Ithisk, for her heirs collection." A gavel cracked. Cheers followed. Elena turned to the room. "Cut the feed. Now." The technician hesitated. "Ma'am, it's on every channel. Global override. Civilians are watching this too." Outside the base, Earth was already reacting. Social networks exploded. News stations scrambled. Riots erupted in Shanghai and Johannesburg within the hour. The footage spread with radioactive speed. Words like revenge and war flooded the public discourse before officials could issue a statement. But Elena didn't move. She stood still, silent, burning. 3 hours later, Earth's unified military command gathered in Olympus Command Hall, where walls displayed real-time star maps and alert feeds. The room buzzed with arguments. "This could be a rogue element within the Concorde," one ambassador said. "Or a sanctioned message. A power play. We can't act impulsively." "They auction children," snapped Elena, her voice slicing through the noise. The room fell quiet. She stepped forward, hands folded behind her back. "They broadcasted this publicly. Which means they wanted us to see it. That wasn't a mistake. That was a challenge." An older general stood. "We file a grievance. We bring it to the Concorde's Ethics Council." "They don't have one," she cut in. "There's no Ethics Council. There's a trade tribunal run by species who profit from this." A silent moment passed. Then she asked, "Do we know who the girls are?" Corrin answered, pulling up files. Tessa Malik, age 10. Juliana Rowe, 12. Abducted from an agricultural colony on Ceres 2 6 weeks ago. The colony filed a missing persons report. It was buried in bureaucracy. "Are their parents alive?" "Yes. They saw the broadcast." Elena's hands clenched. "Get them off-world. Secure location. Full trauma team." She paced toward the table, eyes scanning the star charts. Her voice dropped. Cold. Surgical. This was not about slavery. It was a message: Earth has no power. No standing. No teeth. "And we don't," said General Hume. "Their fleet dwarfs ours by scale and number." "But they don't understand us," she replied. She stared at the Concorde territories, massive, ancient, and smug. Then her finger dragged across Earth's sector, small, tight, and hidden. She tapped a blinking red icon labeled Protocol Vault, black. Corrin's eyes widened. You're not serious. Elena looked him dead in the face. I'm done being civilized. That night, in a dimly lit corridor beneath Olympus Base, she met with Colonel Bryn from Black Protocol Division. No uniforms. No cameras. They crossed the line, she said. Bryn's voice was gravel. Which mission profile? Infiltration. Recovery. Broadcast the extraction. Let the galaxy see that we come back for our own. Concord security is tighter than ever. We'd need full ghost ships and silence codes. You'll get them. Bryn lit a thin black cigar, took a slow drag. This opens the gates, Elena. Once we hit, we don't stop. Good, she said. I don't plan to. Hours later, back in her quarters, Elena watched the footage again. She forced herself to. No flinching. No blinking. She watched the girl, Tessa, tilt her head slightly before the gavel hit, eyes fluttering open. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. But Elena saw it. That look. That faint, flickering terror beneath sedation. The horror of being alone, unheard, dehumanized. She closed the tablet. She turned off the lights. And in the dark, she whispered into the silence. They will never forget what they just did. Back in the Concord's capital, Vizier Churuk reviewed the public feedback from across member systems. Some outrage, but mostly amusement. Humans had long been seen as fascinating creatures, clever, unpredictable, but ultimately minor. This was just a ripple. The Concord had crushed greater threats. Still, the Vizier ordered increased patrols near Terran space. Not out of fear, out of protocol. He doubted they'd retaliate. Earth had no bite. What he didn't know was that Earth hadn't been sleeping. It had been building. And tomorrow, a ship without flags would slip through the stars, silent, cloaked, and armed with something no auctioneer could price. Rage. And memory. The ghost ship Kestrel emerged from a rift in dark space 2 clicks outside Zenthera's security perimeter. It didn't show on sensors. It didn't emit heat. It existed only in theory, an Earth warcraft built for one thing, retribution without warning. Inside, Commander Elena Drake sat strapped into command rig. Her jaw was tight, eyes unmoving, watching the starlit swirl of Zenthera Prime growing on the forward display. Time to surface breach, she asked. 6 minutes, replied Korn from navigation. Their security mesh is cycling. We've timed the hole. Elena nodded once. Deploy drop team. Quiet entry only. Below deck, 6 operatives from Earth's Black Protocol Division loaded up, void camo suits, neural suppressors, spine injectors, zero-light visors. They moved without speaking. These weren't soldiers trained for war. They were shaped for vengeance. Zenthera's undercity was carved into the bones of a hollowed moon beneath the Concord's palace sector. Every wall glowed with embedded biolight. The deeper they went, the colder it got. The auction vault wasn't a chamber. It was a compound. 3 security layers. Genetic locks. Sentient doors. Sensor spores floating in the air like dust. The lead infiltrator, Ren, knelt near a gate. She held up a hand. Wait. From her wristband, she extracted a droplet of programmable matter and whispered, Mimic, deploy. The droplet slithered across the floor like mercury. It reached the DNA lock. 5 seconds later, the lock blinked green. The gate hissed open. They moved like shadows. Inside, the 2 girls, Tessa and Juliana, were asleep on sterilized mats under low stasis fields. Their pulses were steady. No injuries. No restraints. Ren knelt beside Tessa, whispering her name softly. The girl blinked awake. Her body tensed. She didn't scream. It's okay, Ren said. We're from Earth. We're getting you home. Juliana stirred, blinking against the sudden light. How do we know? She asked, voice thin and hoarse. Ren smiled under her visor. Because no one else came. The girls nodded. They didn't speak again. Ren signaled the ship, extraction in 5. Ready silent evac. But the vault wasn't empty. One of the sensor spores triggered, flashing red. A scream tore through the chamber, automated, high-pitched, mechanical. Sirens followed. Contact inbound, shouted another operative. 3 hostiles, fast movers. Gunfire erupted as metal-bodied Concorde sentries poured through the main corridor. The operatives returned fire in short, sharp bursts. No wasted rounds. Elena's voice came through, hold for 2 minutes. We're burning in. The drop team sealed the girls in armored transport pods. The operatives formed a wall. The first operative dropped with a plasma bolt to the chest. Another was dragged into the dark by something that moved too fast to track. They held the line anyway. Ren kicked the launch signal. The floor cracked open. The 2 pods rocketed upward on magnetic rails toward the Kestrel, which hovered above the city dome. Only 2 operatives made it back. On Zenthera's central broadcast network, High Vizier Churuk stared at the emergency footage in disbelief. The auction vault, breached. The girls, gone. His guards, slaughtered. He replayed the final moments, pausing on a single frame, a masked human operative lifting her middle finger toward the security drone before vanishing into a tunnel of light. You arrogant insects, Churuk hissed. The broadcast director approached. Shall we redact the footage? No, Churuk said coldly. We do the opposite. The footage of the botched raid aired galactic-wide within the hour. But the Concorde twisted it. They claimed humans had murdered dozens of officials, destroyed cultural property, and violated sacred territory. They displayed the captured operative, Sergeant Han Liang, stripped, bleeding, strapped to a broadcast rack. Churuk himself spoke into the lens. This Terran defiler will be executed under Concorde law. Let all species understand, humans are not above consequence. A plasma blade flared to life. Elena watched the feed in silence. Then she stood. Begin Phoenix Protocol. That night, Earth's orbital defense grid powered up to full capacity. The moon's hidden drydocks opened, revealing ships never listed on any registry. The Soul Reclaimer, Nightfire, Dante's Resolve, all part of Earth's silent fleet. Stealth dreadnoughts. Cloaked skirmishers. AI-piloted precision bombers. The system darkened for 5 minutes. All global communications rerouted. Elena broadcast from Olympus Command, eyes locked forward, voice calm but sharp. To the Galactic Concorde, you auctioned our children. You executed our kin. You laughed. She leaned closer. We're done asking. Then she vanished from screen. On the edge of the Concorde's outer ring, a bustling trade post called Grithix Loop, a freight station exploded in total silence. Seconds later, the Concorde's entire relay grid for that sector went dark. No one claimed responsibility. Then came the second strike. A Concorde patrol carrier disappeared from sensors. Gone, no debris, no distress. At first, they assumed system error. But when 5 more vessels vanished in sequence, each punctuated by gravitational distortions and AI anomalies, they began to understand. This wasn't retaliation. This was extermination. Zenthera's palace shook. Churuk was dragged from sleep by his guard commander. They've destroyed the Black Archive on Vothos 9, the commander said, breathless. It was shielded. It shouldn't have been possible. Churuk stood slowly. His hands trembled. They can't reach us here. The guard hesitated. With respect, we don't know that anymore. Back on the Kestrel, the rescued girls sat quietly in the medical bay. They hadn't cried. They hadn't spoken much. But when Elena entered, they stood. Tessa looked up at her. The man on the screen, she said. He hurt your soldier. Elena nodded. Yes. The girl tilted her head. What are you going to do? Elena knelt to her eye level. I'm going to make sure they never do it again." The girl didn't smile. She just whispered, "Good." In the distance, Earth's war fleet ignited, engines flaring like comets. No banners. No warnings. Only purpose. And behind it all, a single human voice echoing across the void. "We are not your prey." The Concorde's capital skies turned red an hour before dawn. The fire began with a satellite, silent, small, unassuming. It drifted unnoticed past Zenthera's defense grid, tucked behind orbital debris. By the time it unfolded its wings and split into 9 autonomous microbombers, it was already too late. The first explosion severed the Concorde's main uplink. The second blinded their orbital sensors. The third collapsed the defense shield over the High Palace. From Olympus Base, Commander Elena Drake stood with her arms folded behind her back, watching Zenthera burn in real time. No glee. No remorse. Just control. "Confirm atmospheric breach," she said. "Breached. Ghost teams are descending. Tell them to light the floor." Zenthera's surface, once glimmering with crystalline towers and diplomatic spires, now screamed with alarms and smoke. Earth's dropships cracked through the clouds like thunderbolts, unloading black-armored soldiers with exospines and thermoptic cloaks. They weren't here for prisoners. Streets once lined with trade pavilions and pleasure markets were now battlegrounds. Slave pens split open. Riots surged. The guards abandoned the outer sectors. The Black Protocol teams moved underground, sweeping tunnels, vaults, archives. They weren't looting. They were erasing. Names, records, ownership files, all wiped. The Concorde's infrastructure wasn't being overtaken. It was being dismantled. In the palace tower, High Vizier Churuk watched the city collapse from a fractured window. His robes were torn. His dignity gone. Every wall screen showed chaos. Smoke drifted through ventilation. Even the palace guard had shrunk to a handful. "They were supposed to be feral," he muttered. His aide, bloodied and limping, coughed. "They were patient." Churuk turned, his face pale. "Get me a vessel. I will not die on this planet." But the doors burst inward before the aide could move. 2 Terran strike operatives entered first, weapons leveled. Between them walked Elena Drake. No fanfare. No speech. Just presence. Churuk stepped back. "This is a diplomatic zone. You auctioned our children. I acted within Concorde policy." She fired once. His knee shattered. He fell, screaming. She walked forward, weapon still raised, expression flat. "You executed a prisoner of war live to mock us." Churuk clutched his leg. "You're animals." "No," she said. "We're parents." She kicked him flat, placed a boot on his chest, and tapped her comms. "Patch me in." Global Concorde feed. A red light blinked. "You're live," said Korn's voice in her ear. She looked down at the camera drone now hovering beside her. "This is Commander Elena Drake, of Earth's Orbital Strategic Command." She gestured to Churuk, moaning beneath her. "This man auctioned off 2 of our girls as entertainment. Then he murdered our soldier to provoke fear." She stepped off him. But Earth does not fear. The camera hovered as she turned to Churuk one final time. He spat. "Even now, you're alone. You can't burn an empire." Elena leveled her weapon, eyes unmoved. "We already did. 1 shot. Clean. Broadcasted." The Concorde didn't fall in a day. But it began unraveling the moment that bullet hit. Dozens of smaller civilizations, long oppressed, rebelled within weeks. Others closed trade routes. The slave markets went dark. Concorde councils collapsed into infighting, blame shifting, emergency sessions that led nowhere. Earth didn't occupy. It didn't colonize. It simply withdrew. And left behind nothing but silence. 2 weeks later, in a quiet recovery wing at Olympus Base, Tessa Malik sat in bed drawing with colored pencils. Juliana was asleep nearby. Nurses moved quietly. Elena entered, still in uniform, eyes tired. Tessa looked up. "Did you get him?" Elena nodded once. "Good," the girl said. Then after a pause, "Will they come back?" Elena walked to the window. Earth floated below, wrapped in clouds, calm again. "They'll remember what happens when they do." She didn't look back, but her voice softened. "You're home. You're safe." Tessa watched her for a long moment. And for the first time since she was taken, she smiled. Later that night, on an encrypted line from an off-world station, a transmission crackled through to Olympus. "Terran Commander, the stars remember you now." The voice wasn't Concord. It wasn't an ally. It was someone watching. Earth had spoken. And the galaxy had heard. The war was over. But nothing felt still. Zenthera's skyline was now a fractured memory, its towers cracked like ancient bones. The Galactic Concord's official channels had gone offline, replaced by fractured transmissions, internal rebellions, and desperate calls for ceasefire. Earth didn't answer any of them. At Olympus Command, the war room monitors displayed a strangely quiet galaxy. Trade routes flickered with caution signs. The once bustling communication lanes now held pockets of silence. Commander Elena Drake stood alone at the top of the lunar spire, overlooking Earth. No alarms. No orders. Just wait, not peace, but gravity. "Reports from Caris?" she asked, still staring through the thick, reinforced glass. Corrin's voice came through her comms. "Withdrawal complete. Locals dismantled the slave compound themselves. One of the rebel factions raised a Terran flag. We didn't tell them to. They didn't need to." She turned from the window. "Have we received formal surrender yet?" 7 minor races submitted apology dispatches. No word from Concord Central. Likely fractured. She didn't smile. She didn't frown either. Status of the girls? Released to Earth medical supervision. Families reunited. Tessa's mother asked if she could send a letter. "To who?" "You." Elena paused. "Forward it to my quarters." The letter arrived that evening. Not digital. Handwritten. "Commander Drake. You don't know me. But you saved my daughter. You saved more than her body. You gave her back her place in the world. I'll never understand what that cost you. But I wanted to say, thank you. Thank you for not being polite. Thank you for being furious. The stars don't scare her anymore. She says you taught them to fear her instead. With love. Samira Malik." Elena read it 3 times, then folded it quietly. She didn't cry. She couldn't. Not yet. Elsewhere, deep in what remained of the Concord's inner systems, a private transmission beamed to the ruins of their High Council chamber. The signal was encrypted beyond standard protocols, military-grade Terran frequency. A lone survivor, a former council delegate, opened it, expecting a demand, a threat, maybe even surrender terms. Instead, a single message flashed across the screen. "We remember who we are." No signature. No coordinates. Just presence. On Earth, public discourse had shifted from grief to control. Memorials were built. Funds distributed to former slave families. The footage of Elena confronting Vizier Churuk circulated for weeks, an unfiltered declaration of species dignity. But beneath the surface, world governments grew uneasy. In a private session of the Unified Earth Assembly, diplomats raised questions. Was it proportionate? Should we fear retaliation from surviving Concord factions? What if they form another coalition? What if we become the next empire? Elena, attending via HoloLink, answered without blinking. "We didn't take territory. We didn't enslave. We dismantled what allowed it. That's not empire. That's correction." A senator from the Eurasian bloc spoke up. But the galaxy knows us now. And fear is a double-edged weapon. Elena leaned forward. So let them sharpen theirs. Ours is already drawn. The military paused recruitment. Budgets surged. A second fleet began construction above Mars' orbit. Not to conquer, to prevent needing to conquer again. Earth was no longer on the galactic fringe. It was now an undeniable center. 3 months after Zenthra fell, Elena stood in a decommissioned Concord data vault. What remained was dust, fragments of archives and shattered terminals. The walls had been scorched clean. Ren, the Black Protocol operative who led the rescue team, joined her there. No trophies? Ren asked, brushing ash from a broken slab. Elena shook her head. We didn't come to collect. Just to make sure no one forgets. Ren sighed, half smiling. We turned a slave empire into ash in under a month. Elena glanced at her. It wasn't fast. It just looked fast. The fire started the moment they laid hands on those girls. They stood in silence a moment. Then Elena asked, You ever think we went too far? Ren shrugged. They showed us who they were. We replied. Maybe not with words, but with truth. And the truth is loud, Elena said. Weeks later, in a hidden orbital lab cloaked outside the Jupiter shadow line, Earth's scientists examined remnants of captured Concord tech. AI systems once thought incomprehensible were now being unraveled by Terran engineers. The tech advantage was vanishing. And Earth wasn't just learning. It was advancing. Faster than anyone anticipated. In her private office, Elena pulled up a sealed file. Unmarked. Untitled. Inside were the full mission logs of Kestrel, tactical data, war footage, diplomatic backlogs, intercepted enemy communications, and unedited execution broadcasts. She paused on one frame, Sergeant Han Liang, just before he died, glaring directly into the Concord camera. Unflinching. Proud. She closed the file. Deleted it permanently. Then she opened a new command sequence. Mission tag, Phoenix Remnant. Status, pending. Authorization level, absolute clearance only. Objective, long-term monitoring of ex-Concord systems, unknown anomalies, potential successor empires. She added one last line. Justice ends. Watchfulness doesn't. At the very edge of the known galaxy, past navigable space, something stirred in the ruins of an abandoned Concord mining colony. A strange signal pinged once, then vanished. Untraceable. Back at Olympus, Corrin frowned at the blip. Ma'am, we may have company. Elena didn't blink. Send a drone. And if it doesn't return? She answered calmly. Then we send fire. And Earth, for the first time in centuries, slept with its eyes wide open. Tools.